All right, it's 6:30, Monday, May 13th, 2024. If we call the city mayor, city council meeting to order, please. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to the oath of office for our newly appointed city council member, Samantha Fouch. So Nick, if you would, or I'm sorry, Alicia.
I, Samantha Fouch, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of City Council Member
the duties of the office of City Council Member
of the City of Marion, Minnesota,
of the City of Marion, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Thank you, and welcome to the vote.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Wonderful, congratulations, thank you. So with that, we will move to the approval of the agenda. Any additions to the agenda?
One addition to the agenda, Mayor, I'd like to add to the consent agenda, moving the next city council meeting from the 27th, which is Labor Day, to the 28th, which is the Tuesday after.
All right, with that, we will add 11A for, to move the Monday, May 27th meeting to Tuesday, May 28th. Thank you. With that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Motion, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. That will take us to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to discuss anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. And we'll close public comments and move to consent. Is there anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of 11A to move the city council meeting, the next city council meeting to Tuesday, May 28th. That'll look for a motion to approve.
Motion. Oop.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. With that, we'll move to business item number 12. Informational update from Deputy Brad Hendricks from the Carver County Sheriff's Department on the bike rodeo event. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Nick and Alicia. I came up with an idea for during the Mayor Rising Community Festival to put on a bike rodeo for younger kids. Specifically, we're going to be looking at probably 1st through 4th graders. Of course, anybody that wants to show up, they certainly can. Been working with Nick. Nick has graciously approved to buy bike helmets for the kids that we can pass them out to the participants who are going to be there. Kind of looking around, I think I found him a couple different websites to take a look at. So he was going to purchase the bike helmets and get those in plenty of time. We're going to be giving 2 bicycles away, brand new bikes. We've got R&V Service and Knuckleheads that are buying the new bikes. Those are going to be given away at a drawing at the end of the rodeo. I think initially we were trying to do it afterwards, but after discussion with Zach and Lauren Stifter, we're going to put it on during the actual event, not afterwards, because everyone's usually so tired and we're hoping for a great day, nice weather and everything like that. So, and again, working with Nick, we are going to, he contacted the county. We're going to be closing off a section of Blue Jay, pretty much from the driveway entrance to the end, to the northern end of the parking lot. There should be plenty of room. It's roughly about 100 feet, maybe not even 100 feet, but should be big enough for what we need to do for the bike rodeo over there. I'm going to be designing a course. We're going to be discussing the importance of bike helmets, their safety aspects behind it, have a great demonstration we're going to put on for it. And then we also have our rec services corporal who is bike patrol certified. So he's going to be bringing his bicycle out that the county has purchased for him to come out and kind of go over what he does. And he's going to assist with the importance of helmets and bike safety and rules of the road. So that's pretty much about it. And we're going to be putting that on, and hopefully this will be something that can stick and we can continue it on every year. So try and work on businesses to every year, different businesses to purchase a new bike for a brand new bike to be given away. So
That's great. That's great. It's a great event.
Mhm.
I appreciate you getting it together and donating your time and doing that. That's wonderful. Any questions for
No, that sounds awesome.
Andy Hendricks?
So we're looking at potentially some like mountain style bikes. I just got to go pick them out. And like I said, the two businesses just told me to, they gave me the max they're willing to spend. And I said, I can work with that. I just got to find them, and I'm going to give them the information and say, which one do you want? Do you want the girl's bike or do you want the boy's bike? And then they can pick whichever. They're going to purchase it from wherever I find the bikes at, and then I will just go pick them up. So we're going to store them here along with the bike helmets. And so I'm working on designing a course that'll make it kind of challenging, but not overly challenging. But it'll be fun at the same time, hopefully. So
Good.
I've had great success with the bike rodeos that I put on when I was up in Watertown. So I'm hoping we can, like I say, continue that stretch here. So.
Wonderful. Be sure to reach out if you need other volunteers to help with it or anything.
Yep, and I've checked with the fire chief to see if he might. I know they're going to be busy during the festival. To see if they might have a couple extra hands that might be free to kind of help out with the course, because there are some areas could use a little volunteer work on that one. We're going to be working with the kids to try and do one-handed work. So they have to steer, grab either rolled up newspaper, rolled up magazine, and have to either toss it or drop it in a bin as they drive by. And then we'll have a speed with emergency braking, that'll should be kind of fun for them. But as long as the fire department's here, and it might get Ridgeview down here as well to see if they want to help out with it as well. So just in case anyone has a little spill.
Right.
It's been known to happen on bikes with kids. So
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Great event. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Not really.
Any questions for?
Should be a
Sounds
good time. So we're going to use, for mapping out the course, I think we're going to use the field chalk.
The baseball field chalker.
And then if we want to get that off the roadway, then obviously we can, I'm sure the fire department won't have any problems hosing it down with the fire hose. So
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem anyways. Okay.
like I said, we just need to map it out, and we'll have some obstacles. We'll have some wood, like a chunk of 2x4 that, or a 1x, just to kind of see, make sure they know how to navigate getting over it, how to go around larger obstacles, and then how to transition from like blacktop to going across gravel. So there's plenty of places along the Dakota Trail that have gravel roads that there's a bunch of gravel that goes right over the pathway. So just make sure they know how to properly navigate that and know what to do to slow down or do whatever they need to do. So
Good.
should be a good time.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for your time. Everyone have a great evening.
Yep,
You too.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, and with that, number 13, we do not have anyone from the Veterans Memorial Committee here tonight, so we'll table that until you can reach out to the committee and reschedule,
Mhm.
Nick.
Will do.
And with that, we'll move to the consider approval of crosswalk designation for Second Street between Zion School and Zion Church.
So at the last meeting during our work session, we discussed this topic about designation of a crosswalk for Second Street Northwest between Zion Lutheran School and the Lutheran Church. At the conclusion of those discussions, it seemed like City Council was on board with having this moved to our regular agenda for final approval. We are still putting together cost estimates to have the work done, but we don't think it'll be all that much since we'll likely be doing other striping projects this summer as well. We'll line it all up to keep mobilization costs as minimal as possible. But just as a refresher for anybody that might be watching, as part of their reaccreditation process, under the safety items, there were two items that they brought forward to us to have taken care of. One was replacing a couple signs that had been very faded and worn. Those have been replaced. And then the second item was the designation of this crosswalk.
Perfect, thank you. I'll look for a motion to approve the crosswalk designation for Second Street Northwest between Zion Lutheran School and Zion Lutheran Church.
Motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? My only concerns are, and I think I voiced them at the work session, are I'm just struggling with starting the precedence of putting crosswalks into our city streets now. And who will want one next now that we have this? They want one on Hidden Creek. I just don't, I think we're starting a precedence on that. I understand it's a small amount of money. I get that aspect of it, but a couple other reasons for that is I just don't think we have a safety issue there. And the school didn't think we had a safety issue there last year when we were talking about not putting in the parking, and a resident was in here about how people are parked up there, and the school and church both said we don't have any concerns up there. So I just don't think it should be done. And, and we can't not have concerns to do a variance to not do parking, but now we have concerns because it's not a safety concern, it's accreditation. So that's where I'm struggling with it. That being said, I know it's a little different than our normal city street where there's a church and a school. I understand that's different than Hidden Creek, and so for me, I think a happy medium would have been, I would have no problem approving it, but I think for what this is, the school really should pick up the price, the cost of it is my opinion on that. So any other comments to be made? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries 2-0. Thank you, Jerry. With that, we will move to city council reports. Councilmember Halt, anything to report on?
Not at this time.
Councilmember Fausch, anything to report on?
Nope.
Nope. And I do not have anything myself, as I don't not believe I've had a meeting. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. So with that, we will jump. Are you ready to jump right into work session?
Yeah, we could jump right in. If anybody wants to take off, they certainly can before we hop on in.
That will call the meeting to order, and we can start with the workshop discussion number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. So discussion on the workshop here, preliminary report on a wastewater regionalization project with New Germany. So a few years ago, this subject had been brought up as the city was looking at our wastewater rehabilitation project, and Mayor approached New Germany with a proposal for regionalization, which basically means, I'll bring up the map here. On the west end, you can see New Germany. On the east end, here is Mayor. The idea is that New Germany is also at capacity with their wastewater facility, so they can't add new homes. They can't expand as they would like to. And they were looking at a proposal to build new stabilization ponds so that they could grow in capacity. And the idea was that, well, Mayor is already looking at upgrading our 20-year-old facilities, and our Class A facility. Would New Germany like to run a pipeline from their facilities to ours and basically become a customer of the city and ship their wastewater this way? This would be more of a transportation pipeline. We wouldn't be taking over necessarily their distribution system, which was all the mains in town and servicing that. This would be more a looking at just building the transportation pipeline so they could, once they collect it all into their system, ship it our way for processing. So that was looked at a few years ago. The style and the approach, and I think the numbers used, weren't reflective of the current situation. There wasn't talk of PSIG grant funding at the time. A lot of the O&M costs, I think, were figured a bit higher than they probably should have been. So when we're facing a current situation now where we have more hard figures of what it's all going to lay down as, especially as we look at PSIG, I think that changes the perspective of how we view this. And this is something I've mentioned in emails to council before, but I had a good sit-down conversation with Twyla about a couple of months ago at this point regarding this topic. And I expressed to her how I'd like to approach it, and she thought that might be workable from New Germany's end. And New Germany has invited me out to a workshop at their city council to present the concepts and ideas. And I told them, well, before I can go to your council meeting, I should probably have a good formal talk with my city council before I do so. So that being said, what I'm looking at as far as the project goes is, as you can see on the map here, starting from the wastewater ponds, running a transportation pipeline that would get all of their material to our wastewater treatment facility, approximately a little over 2 miles in length. When it comes to financing of the project, the pipeline would be about roughly $3 million. I've been working with our engineers Bolton and Menk on this. A lot of the back of the napkin stuff, I have not engaged them on any heavy lifting regarding this subject. I'm trying to keep the kind of the time and materials cost pretty low until I have a decent understanding of what we're looking at on this. But Jennifer Selchow, who's been working on our wastewater treatment facility proposal, when I broached her about the subject, she said, yeah, regionalization is usually looked upon pretty favorably when it comes to these projects. And then if we combine, if it's a win-win for both sides, and this is all very preliminary. I'm not looking for any sort of, yeah, we're on board, let's go, hurrah. Just want to present some basic concepts of approaching this project along with some preliminary figures. And as long as council's still saying, yeah, pursue it, this is something we'd like to take to maybe sharpen the pencil a bit more, see what New Germany thinks, and then come back. We can continue on this process further. So what Bolton Menk put together, they grabbed the DMRs for our facilities, and you don't have to really read all the numbers, but basically these are our flows for both Mayer and down here on New Germany. This gives us a sense of the wastewater influent streams that we're looking at, basically how much processing of material we're going to look at. And that gets used over here to figure out, because we think about how do some of this, how would some of these get prorated as far as what's billed, what's not, project costs, things of that nature. So that gives us a split of how much flow of the total would be Mayer's and how much flow would be New Germany's. And I think that's the flows is a pretty good and fair way to split these project costs out. Like I had mentioned previously, this is more of a CIP build. Sorry to go back into that. So here in 2025, as we look at this, our phase 1 project is about 9.5 million that we're looking at. We're looking at approximately 6.1 million in PSIG funding. That's not guaranteed at this point, but that's what we're in line for in the project priority listing. So that brings the total project down to 3.4 million. And if you break it out by those shares, this then gives the project cost breakout on that. When we look at plugging this in, what I had to do was take flow numbers, take that, and then I also able to get New Germany's budget, their sewer budget specifically. And then what I did is I did some extrapolation and projection of what their budget would be out to 2033. The idea being is I have to build their approximate budgets to get an idea of what we're looking at. If I can then do a pretty shoestring rate study. The rate study I did for Mayer was more in depth. I use more of the base figures with comparisons and then work them up from there. The approach I took with this one gets us in the ballpark. I take a look at what their revenues are here, and then I don't analyze their rates. I just increase their rates accordingly. So if there's if I needed to say a 5% boost in revenues here, that would mean a 5% increase in their rates, all things being equal. So as I worked through the numbers, I worked through a situation where we were looking at regionalization and then not regionalization, if they were due to their pond project and what would that look like. So in producing that, blow this up as much as I can. Here's what I came up with as far as rates. So this is a circumstance where we look at regionalization.
These are their current base charges from 23 and 24. This is what they would need to do over the course of years, assuming a 2026 build year, and that's when it gets kicked off. Now, this could easily switch to 27 to 28, but the general concept of what those rates would have to do is applicable, no matter the year. So you can see in 26, if we were to regionalize, they need to bump them up by 55%. And then we also have to factor in phase two, because once they're connected to our system, not only are we looking at the phase one, but if you recall from the presentation, there was a future phase two that we were looking at. And if they're going to be connected on, I have to look out to that far to see what's the impact of that going to potentially be. Because I can't hook them, say, for here, and then it's a 300% increase here, and then they're just like, well, I wish we never would have connected to begin with, and everybody has buyer's remorse. I don't want to run into that situation. So also looked at the project cost out for phase two, which was about 15 million. Figured 7 million if we had 9.5 here at 6.1, 15 here. Just threw in a project number. Now this is unknowable until we get to 2030. Potential of 7 million in PSIG funding. We'll see what that actually look at like when we get there. And I will tell New Germany that this is out there. I mean, there's no guarantee of this at all. So I want them to go in eyes wide open on the whole thing. Well, if you look at that, bringing down the cost of 8 million, this is where phase two calculations come into play. And again, you guys are probably used to my messy spreadsheets by now. This is where, again, we split out the cost according to pro rating. And then I also did annual debt service calculations when we look at phase two as part of that. So that then plays into the budget figures when we look at, I included those budget numbers as we hit 2030 based on those figures with their budget and brought it out here to another 25% increase in 2030 to have the revenue stream that they would need to cover those two instances of the two phases. They did have a rate study done in 2023 that looked at if they went on their own, did their own facility, took those numbers. So you can see there, based on that, they were looking at the potential of having double 70s on the increase in this one. Just substantial increases. So I think at the end of the day, what we're looking at is when we look at this and we look at this regionalization, what the utility bill or what the rates would look like versus non-regionalization. And you can see here on regionalization, it's far better in that circumstance when we look at that. Another component of this comes to O&M costs. Now, they don't just hook up and they don't just get this for free. There's going to be operations and maintenance costs associated with that. And so when I took a peek at that and talking with Jennifer, we figured without them connecting on, without New Germany connecting on, they were figuring it was going to cost an additional $20,000 to run the facility with the improvements that we're making in phase one. We also figure once they connect on, it's going to increase flows by about 30%. So what this represents is 20,000 multiplied by that 30%. And then since their inflow is 30%, then they get 30% of that O&M cost. So New Germany O&M phase one, which is the notation here, 7,800. New Germany O&M of whatever existing costs are, since we will have existing facilities that are going to be used when they connect on. I took the budget. I didn't take the entire budget, which is something I think they did in 2021 when the analysis was done. They took 30% of the entirety of our sewer fund budget, which isn't quite correct. Part of that is debt service. Part of that is lift stations that are not part of the sewer treatment plant. We do have a department code for the sewer treatment plant here. And you can see that's the total cost right there. And then sewer, this is more of our distribution system costs, more or less. So the main one we throw in here is this one that we calculate off of, not on the total $780,000 on that, because that would blow that O&M cost way out there. So I figured 170, if we have some insurance costs, some other things in there that we can get applicable. I started the base number at 185, adding on that 30% if New Germany hooks on, and then 30% of that cost is 72,000, which is about 80 grand, as you can see there. And I just rounded that up to 85 in their budgetary figures. So 85 would be the annual cost we look to charge New Germany, roughly. Now, if we go forward with this, if everybody's nodding their head saying, yeah, let's continue, then we would really drill down into numbers and really refine this. But this gives a good ballpark figure of what we figure it ought to be. So the city, we would be making 84 grand a year, and that would get adjusted year to year depending on flows to make sure that's accurate. But that would play into our revenue stream. The bulk of that covering our O&M costs that we have into the project to making sure we're not going backward. We're not making a ton of money off this, but one of those perspectives I have is if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't want New Germany gouging us. I think we do have to make a little bit of money on it, but I think that needs to be a reasonable amount because in the reverse situations, we would want them to be fair to us.
So do our water bills go down then?
Slightly, yeah, of the sewer bills.
Yeah.
Because this figure would get added to our revenue side. Now, knowing that a good chunk of it is paying for O&M costs, that would be incurring, this would be pure O&M costs as part of the improvement. This would be offsetting some of our existing ones on that. So this would help our revenue stream. So in here, say, for 2025, we get that added in as part of it. That's also included in these shoestring rate structure figures, but including all those, they're still looking at a really decent between the two. So when we look at, say, utility bills as a whole, regionalization versus non-regionalization, you don't see much of a difference, but as the time goes by, roughly that's what they're looking at in if they regionalize, it would be that much less per month, assuming 4,000 gallons usage, than if they went on their own. So we as the city would see additional revenue coming in, having them as customers, and they would realize a lower cost per month for their citizens by regionalizing, is the concept. Now, that would be a lot more time and effort that would go into the details.
You got one of these fancy ones for how it would affect the mayor?
Didn't build that out.
Oh,
The basic assumption is that would be making more money than is going out due to it.
I guess I want to see the numbers of the advantage for mayor in this.
Helpful, but not substantial.
Yeah, see, I don't know. What are we gaining by this? We're helping New Germany, which I'm not saying we shouldn't do.
Yeah, like I said, we did this a couple of years ago. What was it, 2021, or was it even earlier than that?
I think talks might have started in 20.
Yeah, I think so.
Some of the reports I saw were from 21.
Yeah, because I didn't think they liked our proposal,
The
did they?
numbers just weren't
Yeah.
coming in for them, but we know more now based on some of the grants that we're looking at.
Right. In the original iteration,
We're further with our expansions where we need to be.
and I remember in some of the first iterations, there was no talk of PSIG funding. So it was the total 9.5 million being split out. When you're talking 6 mil in grant funding, knocking that down and you're only splitting 3.4 million, that changes the financial picture wildly.
And I guess we're upgrading our facilities sooner than expected too, but
This, so if they don't regionalize, we're still doing this.
Oh.
We're still doing the phase one.
We still need to upgrade.
Yeah.
but
Phase two, you'll have to push that up a little bit. And that was also part of what we looked at is,
It might put our whole new expansion that we're gonna have in 15, 20 years, again, as growth, it might make that come a little bit quicker.
right, and that's where I figured that in. So right here, we'd be at 80% of current permitted capacity as soon as New Germany ties in. We have capacity for 87 households before we hit our 85%. And then we have 348 households before we hit 100%. And what this threshold tells us is we need to start working on phase two, which was discussed, and it was in the report that we received last year. They were talking 2030 to 2035, phase two triggering. If we add in New Germany, that's probably pushing it closer to that 2030 timeframe. So it wasn't necessarily a question of if you do phase two, it's when you do phase two. And adding more households means it pushes it up sooner.
Right.
It'd be the same if we added 300 homes in Mayor. It would push
Right.
up that time frame sooner.
So for me, I have no problem relooking at this again and revisiting it. If they came back and asked us, we were certainly willing to be partners at that time 5 years ago. My only thoughts on it are, I would like to see it, some of this driven again back with the person or the Public Works Committee as we did before, where we met with Bolton and Menk and we got dialed in a little bit better on our numbers. I don't want to get to New Germany too prematurely.
Right.
Again, not that we have to have everything accurate by any means, but just make sure we didn't miss any. I'd like to see another like Public Works meeting to
Yeah.
make sure we're aligned. I'd like to compare to the last study, how it compares to this, the numbers and what's changed. And did we miss anything on the, did we think of something here that maybe we didn't consider, so I want to revisit things. But I have no problem doing the exercise. I just don't want to get down there to New Germany too soon.
Right. Some of the other factors that went into the last one that are different than this one, the calculations of what was going to be charged to New Germany. There were two other factors. One is the rates that were going to be charged to New Germany. What was done is they took Mayor's base rate and per thousand rate and just multiplied it by the number of homes that were over there, which doesn't make sense because those rates are based upon our.
And
I-
and I agree with that comment. It might not have made sense, but it made sense at the time.
Right.
So it's different conversations. So I just want to make sure as a committee and a group, we're still,
Yep.
maybe it does still make sense,
I just wanted to just quickly touch the rates that we charge are based upon the entirety of our budget. Similarly to the split, we only look at these costs for charging New Germany, not the entirety. So to, at the time, use our existing rate structure and then just flop it to New Germany, the pencil could be sharpened better.
and I'm certain of that. I think just a lot's changed.
Right. I think the other thing that was also looked at is charging SAC fees for every single household that was in New Germany.
Yeah.
I don't think that is appropriate for this circumstance. As long as they pay for their portion of the projects, that represents our SAC fee.
I remember we did a big conversation about that. Again, it
Yep.
might not be appropriate, but it was at the time, and I want to know what's changed and where we're at. and what
Right.
we didn't. Because it'll be almost the same group of people there outside of you switching with Maggie, I think the administrator.
Mhm.
Um,
So yeah, I'm not looking to say, yep, heave ho, let's
But
commit to
I
the
have no
project.
problem doing it. I think it's good for New Germany. I think it's good for us. I just think it's good all around. It's going to benefit us no matter what. I mean,
And that's not necessarily the final number.
Right.
This is just really high level,
I'd love to see a couple public works meetings and
definitely.
we go through some of this stuff and then get down there. And I'm certainly more than willing to go down with if they want, or if you want another person down there, that's fine once we get some of our numbers together. And if not, no big deal, but I'll certainly let you drive that.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure I gave the overview of in concept, what we're looking at. The math is there, but again, it's ballpark math. It's not necessarily really drilled down, hyper accurate math. And at this point in the conversation, I want to make sure I got in front of council with you guys, make sure I brought it forth, what I was thinking, what I was looking at, because New Germany did request I go over, and we'll go over.
Yeah.
To present.
Yeah, I don't have to. It's if they want me to or you
No,
want me to.
Be good to have you there.
I think it makes sense.
But before I can do that, I should probably get in front of you guys.
Yeah,
first.
yeah, absolutely.
So any burning questions on that? Anything on that front?
I don't have any now. It'll just be nice for me to review what we did previously, just to kind of get back. I haven't
Yep.
seen any of these numbers yet, nothing yet. So
Right.
I think that'll be helpful. I know for me.
All right.
Chad, were you not on council? You weren't on council back at that time, were you, when we had the discussions?
There were brief
Oh, Nick-
discussions about it. I think I was on the tail end.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm fine. As long as it helps both communities, I'm fine with it.
That was a big piece of it last time. I mean, we weren't gonna make sure our residents missed out on something. I mean, we weren't gonna
Right.
sacrifice things here.
Right.
Whatever it may be, quality, pricing, we made sure of that aspect for sure. Now, do we need it to be a revenue stream and make money? I don't know if that was ever our intent. It was just make sure we're set here, we can handle it and handle the capacity. And by default, there's gonna be benefit to this community no matter what on some of the, bringing in some of that revenue, reduce our budget and things like that. So
Right,
we're gonna see a positive impact.
right.
one
Lower
way or
tax
another.
rates
Yeah,
or something. Yep,
Yep.
one way or another.
All right. That's all I have on that then.
Perfect. All right, and we will move into a closed session.
Bye, Donnie.
Ask everyone to leave. We are going to consider strategies for labor negotiations, including negotiation strategies, development or discussion of labor negotiation proposal authorized by Minnesota State Statute 13D.03.
And so just want to tell everybody that's watching, this will be the last item on the workshop agenda. There will be nothing afterwards and we'll be going straight to adjournment.
Correct. Yep, we'll adjourn after we come out of closed.
Sounds good.
Perfect. So with that, we will go into closed session at 7:07 PM on May 13th.